And I'm Donnie Kendall, and welcome to our new show, The FastBreak, with Donnie and Hoth.
In this show, we will be discussing and talking about the hottest topics from around the National Basketball Association.
You know, a lot of work went into making this program happen. We'd like to thank a few people.
We'd like to thank KPCK TV executive producer Dylan Field, KPCK TV faculty advisor Dr. Mel Starson, Jay Rizek from the NBA, and the NBA in general. Thank you for your help. All right, Donnie, let's get into the hottest topics. We're starting off with headlines. So I think first we have to talk about the big news coming out of the All-Star weekend, and that is DeMarcus Cousins getting traded to New Orleans.
Yes, DeMarcus Cousins getting traded to New Orleans was a very big surprise to me. I mean, honestly, you've seen him in many interviews talking about, I want to stay here in Sacramento. I love this place. There was even rumors of giving him possibly a $200 million contract. But for all of this to happen right now, it makes you wonder who was being honest in this situation, who was really going to be the fair person out of this whole deal. I mean, Vlade Divac kept saying he had no intentions on trading him. But then we just learned that from Vlade Divac's own mouth that a few days ago that he was considering another deal that was a lot better than this one. It kind of makes you think, like, what made him change his mind about trading DeMarcus Cousins? And also the fact, if he had a better deal than the one he had with the Pelicans, why didn't he just go with that instead?
Right. I mean, the Pelicans they stole his deal pretty much. I mean, the Kings aren't getting a whole lot in return. They're getting Buddy Hield, who, don't get me wrong, he's probably going to be a good guy off the bench, or even, a decent starting player. But the Pelicans definitely came up on top on this one.
I mean, like, to be quite honest with you, they also got Omer Caspi as well, too. A nice, decent 3-4 who could knock down the three-pointer. I mean, I seen him have like a battle a couple times. I forgot. I think it was against the Warriors last year. He was trading three-pointers. I mean, but they get more shooting out of it. But however, the Sacramento Kings, they kind of got robbed in this one, though. When you really look at it like this, they got Tariq Evans back, former Rookie of the Year in 2010, and he's right back where he started there. And Ben McLemore is still going to suffer because his minutes are going down. In addition to Buddy Hield, which, by the way, the owner of the Sacramento Kings said he sees star potential in him like a Stephen Curry.
All right, speaking of the All-Star Weekend, let's just briefly touch on this. Maybe your favorite part of All-Star Weekend?
You know, to be quite honest with you, my favorite part of All-Star Weekend was watching Kevin Durant throw that alley-oop to Russell Westbrook and them playing like nothing happened, and the whole Western bench celebrating after that play happened. I thought that was pretty good to see them two unite after all the beef and everything else since Kevin Durant bolted and went to the Golden State Warriors.
And that actually brings us kind of nicely into our next headline. People have been talking all season. Is there a rivalry between Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook? And do you think they don't like each other? I think there's got to be some level of distaste for each other. You got to think, if you're Russell Westbrook, you've got to be a little bit angry at Kevin Durant for just walking out on you.
I mean, like, I agree with you on that one, though. I mean, like, for number one, they were like brothers. I mean, Durant got drafted by the Seattle Supersonics before they became the Thunder in 2007. Russell was drafted in the first round the following year. They were like the best dynamic duo out there in the West, honestly. That's just my opinion speaking. I mean, yes, every duo is going to have their little trials. And remember the teams that they had with James Harden being on there and Serge Ibaka and Kendrick Perkins at center. That's funny, though. But, I don't really know if they really hate each other or not. I highly doubt that. However, I do feel that the media is like really putting a lot into this. When you look at like some of the advertisements, former brothers versus each other, Russell Westbrook versus Kevin Durant, a former MVP versus a guy who's potentially going to be MVP, barring whatever goes on, with the emergence of like a James Harden playing better basketball now. It's really hard to say, but if you ever notice that Durant and Westbrook, they were like the best duo at one time, but now when you bring up Durant to Westbrook just swerves it like he did at the All-Star weekend. He swerved and talked about fashion at the press conference.
That kind of leads us into our last headline. Another thing we've been kind of hearing all year, should Russell Westbrook win the MVP, even if the Thunder don't make the playoffs? I think he should. He's averaging a triple-double a game almost, and he's smashed the record for most triple-doubles before the All-Star break. I don't think there's any question. James Harden's playing great basketball, but Russell Westbrook's carrying the Thunder right now.
I mean, the way I see it, though, I'd like to see Russell Westbrook win the MVP. I mean, James Harden is part of the D'Antoni system, which benefited a lot of players, when he was in Phoenix as coach. It didn't work so well when he went to New York, D'Antoni that is, or especially in Los Angeles. But this team is like a run and gun team. They kind of remind me of like how the Golden State Warriors were back in the day with Don Nelson, the run and gun offense. But honestly, as far as the individual aspect, Russell Westbrook is carrying his team. He is really doing work. He's putting in those numbers, He's getting his teammates involved too. But it's kind of hard to say. If your team's not in the top 3, could you be an MVP candidate? And should you get it? But I'm thinking he should get it. How about you?
Yeah, I still think Russell Westbrook deserves it. I mean, he's carried his team, and he's a great player. And if you average a triple-double, I mean, you're obviously at the top of your game and deserve to be recognized for it.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, that's the hottest headlines from around the NBA. Many teams dream of lifting the NBA title at the end of a long season, but some teams just don't have it. And we'll discuss that in a segment we like to call Contender or Pretender. All right, Donnie. So I'm going to give you some teams and just give me a quick blurb if you think they're contenders or pretenders.
Okay.
First up, the Toronto Raptors.
Now, the Toronto Raptors, honestly, they did go to the conference finals. The Toronto Raptors have been going to the playoffs. You got Kyle Lowry on that team. You got newly acquired Serge Ibaka, and you have all-star starter DeMar DeRozan there. I mean, but something feels missing. It feels like they're missing one more or two more players to get them over the hump against, Cleveland and whatnot. And the way I see it, I with that being said, they can be contenders with that. But right now, it's kind of like push, because they've gotten there without an extra superstar, extra player.
Team number 2, the Oklahoma City Thunder.
The Thunder, I would kind of want to say they're, I don't want to say they're pretenders either, but I can't say that they're contenders. We're talking about a team in the West. They're very competitive. I mean, you got the Warriors up there, you got the Spurs up there, you got teams that are like coming out of the woodworks, not necessarily out of the woodworks, but they're like, the Rockets are playing great basketball too. If they don't get an extra scorer out there, well, I have to put them in the pretender category probably.
All right. Team number 3, the San Antonio Spurs.
Without a doubt, they're contenders, man. Look, let me just tell you the truth. They went to the playoffs every single year since 1998. And even before then, they kept going to the playoffs. I mean, this is like the first year without Tim Duncan there anchoring the paint. Kawhi Leonard has emerged into team leader, team captain. You still have Ginobili and you still have Tony Parker there. But you also got Paul Gasol over there doing like what he's supposed to be doing. And you got LaMarcus Aldridge there. Popovich has a system, and it's worked greatly since he took over the reins as head coach. So you know what? I'm going to call them contenders.
All right, next team, the Boston Celtics.
Now, this is interesting that you mentioned the Boston Celtics because, look at their history. 17 championships, all those banners. It's like you can't even wear not one number in there from 0 to like 21 probably. I'm going to say this. Isaiah Thomas has been called the king of the fourth.
Yep.
You've seen the memes.
Yep.
You've seen the videos. You've seen Bleacher Report doing their thing. The guy even tried to slam dunk a basketball. I know he had that much vert, but he converted that into like a beautiful three-point shot. There's rumblings about them trying to get Blake Griffin. They're trying to pick up Jimmy Butler, who's my dog right there. I like Jimmy. And they're trying to pick up Paul George. If they land any one of those, or by some miracle, 2 out of those 3, they're in contender. But right now, we got to get them out the first round too. So we're going to say pretender contending.
All right, next team, the Los Angeles Clippers.
Okay, now here's the thing with the Los Angeles Clippers, everybody. The LA Clippers, they're a talented team. You got Doc Rivers, man. One of the most intelligent coaches you've seen there. I've seen what he did with Orlando when he coached there. Loved what he did in Boston. Seen him in LA, got them playing real ball. However, you can't get far just being known as a team that throw lobs. Lob City, You got a center who is not even converting at least 40% of his free throws, I don't believe. And you got Blake Griffin. That dude is getting better every year. But them injuries, they need to talk to somebody, and just get everybody on the same page, the medical staff and the players, get them healthy and built up. However, I don't see anything past the second round for them, so I got to go with pretenders. Sorry, man.
All right, next up, the Houston Rockets.
This is a tough one right now because, as I said earlier, we talked about James Harden being his hat thrown in to be on MVP consideration. Not too sure about the rest of his team, although Eric Gordon is playing unstoppable basketball right now. He won the three-point shootout too, but it takes a lot more than that. You know what they say, you live by the three, you die by the three. And I like their offense, but tell me where the defense is. So since they're playing good ball, I just got to say this. Show me something. Get a move in the trade deadline by the end of by Thursday, I believe. But with that being said, you know, offense isn't the only component to winning championships. Defenses play a factor in there too. So I'm going to say pretender for now, but if they surprise me by the trade deadline, contender.
All right, real quick, the last team, the Utah Jazz.
Utah Jazz. This is interesting because the Utah Jazz have a chance to get to the playoffs for the first time since Jerry Sloan was coach. And y'all know when Jerry Sloan was coaching, he got the Jazz to the playoffs. But, you know, I like what they're doing right there. Rudy Gobert is one of the most underrated centers on this team. But they need a little bit more. Gordon Hayward is an all-star showing what he can do. But right now, I'm going to have to go a pretender right now. I got to go a pretender.
All right. Ever think about who the best point guards of all time were? Ever debate with your buddies who the best point guards are today? Well, we've thought of that, and we have you covered with a game we like to call Past versus Present.
All right, here to help us out right now with our new game right now of the best top 5 point guards, current and past, is our good friend Quentin Brandt.
All right, Quentin, let's start with best point guards right now. Who's your number 5?
My number 5 right now is Steph Curry. Like a couple years ago, he obviously would have been number 1 just because he was shooting lights out from beyond the arc and controlling, you know, pretty much the whole team and the pace of the game for them. But as of right now with KD and how Klay Thompson has really evolved into the team and with Draymond, I can't put him any higher than 5.
I have Steph Curry at number 5 too. Like Quentin said, a couple years ago, without a doubt, number 1. But his team no longer really relies on him to win the game. Donnie?
I mean, like, for my number 5, I had to pick Damian Lillard. The reason I picked Damian Lillard is because he's a proven leader, but he doesn't really get as much talked about. He's been snubbed from the All-Star game multiple times, and he always shows and proves himself and puts on one heck of a performance out in the playoffs. He slept on.
Quentin, your number 4?
My number 4 is Isaiah Thomas because I really think like he hasn't really matured into the ball player he is now today. I mean, he was the last pick when he was in the draft when the year that he got drafted. And, you know, he's not a big guard, but yet he's still averaging like 28.9 points a game. Mm-hmm. So I really think he has a case to be in the top 5.
I have Isaiah Thomas at number 4 as well. He's carrying the Celtics this year, and you can now kind of maybe start to put him in that conversation of elite point guards.
All right. My number 4, honestly, I got to go with Isaiah Thomas as well, too, though. I mean, because first of all, heart over height. The guy is a baller. He goes out there, he gives 110% every time he plays. Yeah. And, you know, people overestimate him. Sacramento and Phoenix did not know what to do with him when he played. Once he got to Boston, Stevens let him just run free, and they got to the playoffs.
Quentin, number 3?
My number 3 is Chris Paul, CP3. Really, because without him, the Clippers, I don't think could contend at all, really, because the way he just, you know, handles the rock and everything. He really distributes it well, and he just gets everyone involved.
My number 3, I had Kyrie Irving. Here's why. This guy takes big shots, and he makes them. Mm-hmm. The 2015 NBA Finals, who was taking that game-winning shot? It wasn't LeBron, it wasn't Love, it was Kyrie Irving.
All right.
And, Donnie, number 3.
Like, once again, man, I got to agree with my man Q over there. I got to say Chris Paul's number 3. I mean, like, a lot of people will sit there and just, you know, they won't pick Chris Paul because, oh, he's NBA old, whatever that means. Listen, this is the same guy that had 20 assists in a game with no turnovers. Mm-hmm. This is a guy who plays lockdown defense. This is a guy who gets to the bucket. This is a guy who will shoot you to a victory. He will carry you on his back if need be. And that's why I put him like number 3.
Quentin, your number 2?
My number 2 is Kyrie.
Okay.
You know, kind of like what you just said. You know, he takes big shots. You know, he's dependable. Before LeBron came back to Cleveland, he was carrying the Cavs. Yeah. Even though he didn't have, I think, as big a much effect as when LeBron was just doing it. But, you know, that's because he was also younger, too, and everything.
My number 2 is Chris Paul. You guys mentioned most of it. He's a smart player. He runs that Clippers team when he's healthy. He's an excellent defender, and he almost averages a career double-double. over his career. So, I mean, that's why he's my number 2. Donnie?
My number 2 is going to surprise a lot of people. I got to go with Stephen Curry as number 2. And the reason why I picked Stephen Curry at number 2 is because, he gets his assist and all, but who was the other guy that was also getting a lot of assists for that team as well, too? It wasn't really him. It was Draymond Green. I mean, like, Curry's a great playmaker and a great shooter, but a lot of his focus goes onto, like, his scoring as opposed to his passing. But nevertheless, he is the captain of that team. He has some of the greatest court vision you'll see. But that's what kept him from being my number 1. But he's a phenomenal point guard, though.
Quentin, your number 1 point guard right now.
My number 1 point guard right now would have to be Russell Westbrook. And I think it's pretty obvious because he's averaging triple-double. He has more triple-doubles this season in the NBA than anyone else, and it's not even close. And, he has already shown that he can still carry OKC to possible playoffs without KD.
Okay.
My number 1's Russell Westbrook, too. Same reasons. I mean, he's carrying the Thunder, averages a triple-double.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's not afraid to take any shot.
Yep.
Before I get to my number 1, I want to give a shout out to my honorable mention who just missed the list. I got to say Mr. John Wall, because he's never talked about the athleticism, the way he gets his team involved. Remember he had that hand injury a year or 2 ago in the playoffs and still came back and played? That's heart right there. I like that. But my number 1 across the board, I got to say, is Russell Westbrook, man. The way he just plays with intensity and ferociousness, he's just that good. Like you said with the triple doubles, man. I mean, who's really doing that? Everybody wants to score, or just have their name all across the whole, the newspaper, like, oh, I did all this and that. He's Mr. Done It All and did everything and going to continue to do it. That's why I like Russell Westbrook's number 1.
Yep.
Let's move on to our top 5 point guards ever. Quentin, start us off with number 5.
My number 5 is Oscar Robertson. He averaged over 25 points per game and averaged over 9 assists a game. And I just really think he did wonders for the team that he was on.
I have Isaiah Thomas, the original Isaiah Thomas. He was short, kind of like the Isaiah Thomas of the NBA today, but he had a lot of heart. And he played at his best when it counted. 19.2 points per game, 9.3 assists, 2 titles, 12-time All-Star, and he's in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, my number 5 is pretty much a contrast from a lot of people, and I know I'm probably going to get a little bit of heat for this one. I got to go with Gary Payton. For personal reasons aside, you go ahead and say what you want to say, though, but Gary Payton, I pick him because, one, the guy he just goes in there. His mind is on getting in your head. His psychology of the game is just one of the most very underrated. Not a lot of people talk about that. He'll get in your head and lock you down. He's the glove and you get no love. There's a reason for why he's just who he is. I like him.
Quentin, number 4.
My number 4 is Isaiah Thomas, old Isaiah Thomas, and pretty much what you just said too. A lot of heart. He, always wanted to win, always went out there and competed. So that's why I gave him number 4.
My number 4 is Bob Cousy, kind of a throwback to the old NBA. Okay. He was way ahead of his time, and he made things click for those Celtics teams of the 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta go with Jason Kidd is my number 4. He's still in the league as a coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, but man, the things he did was very phenomenal. 3-point shooting, which finally came and clicked towards the second half of his career, but his court vision is just was unparalleled for a guy of the 90s into the 2000s into the early 2010s.
Quentin, number 3?
My number 3 is Jerry West. He averaged over 27 points per game. In 932 games, he had over 25,000 points. So, he knew how to score. And he also knew how to pass the ball. He almost averaged 7 assists a game. So, he's no slouch on that end either.
My number 3 is Oscar Robertson. Kind of to say what you said, he was a smart player, and he in 1961-1962 season he averaged a triple-double. So I think that's good enough to be on this list.
All right, I understand that one though. I got to go with Isaiah Thomas as my next pick because look, the guy played on a bad ankle. The man dropped 20+ points in the fourth quarter. The man set records. The man, he's not talked about a lot because, a lot of people can't forgive him for his coaching stints in Indiana and New York. But the guy was honestly the second best point guard of the 80s and one of the greatest of all time.
Quentin, number 2?
My number 2 is Magic Johnson. He's a big point guard, 6'9". So, he could pretty much play wherever he wanted to and would still score. And he averaged over 19 points a game. He averaged 11 assists, and that was through 906 games. So, I think if he was able to still continue playing with the HIV and everything, he would probably be in my number one.
Okay.
I just couldn't keep him at my number one.
I had Magic Johnson at 2 as well. He was a big player. He was kind of the first positionless player.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you see LeBron's kind of that positionless player now where he can kind of play any position.
Okay.
Magic 12-time All-Star, 3-time MVP, Hall of Fame. So, yeah.
And then my number 2 is John Stockton. And here's my thing with John Stockton over most of the other point guards. Durability is key. You've never really seen him play a season less than probably 80 or 79 games. Probably at least maybe once or twice. Mm-hmm. And one time was the lockout season, which was only 50 games. But he showed up. He was a very scrappy player, knocked down clutch shots. Had it not been for him in '97 knocking down that shot against Houston, they never would have been able to taste the NBA Finals. And even the next year. That's why I picked him at number 2. Scrappy player, all-time in assists and steals.
Quentin, your number 1 point guard of all time.
My number 1 point guard of all time is John Stockton. I mean, the man is 6'1", so he's average height. He's about the same height as I am. He distributed the ball well because he had to, because he wasn't going to be able to do it all on his own like Magic could. He averaged, the 13 points per game, and, he is the all-time steal and assist leader. And
yes.
He played over 1,500 games. So, like you were just talking with the durability, he had longevity pretty much throughout his whole career.
Yes.
I had John Stockton number 1 as well. Kind of the same thing you guys have both said about him. Durable, tough. He was a leader. He was efficient. Mm-hmm. And if we want to talk pure point guard, the purest position of a point guard, I think he's the best definition of it. And him and Malone had that pick and roll mastered.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Now, you talk about like the traditional point guard. My number 1 is the non-traditional point guard. And, of course, that is the man you guys picked at number 2, Mr. Magic Johnson, and I will tell you exactly why I chose Magic Johnson. 1979, Magic Johnson won the NCAA championship with Michigan State against who? Larry Bird of Indiana State. Mm-hmm. Gets in by a coin flip. That's how the Lakers win that champion, get him as their first pick. Kareem is out. You got a 6'9" guy who eventually becomes one of the greatest point guards of all time, starting at center. He scored 42 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists in the clinching Game 6 of 1980 Finals. Goes on, averages 20 points, 10 assists per game for a while. Had he not had his career cut down because of him having HIV, who knows what else he could have done. He probably could have played for a full 20, 25 years maybe. And he even came back for part of the season and took his team to the playoffs. And let's not forget about what he did for the NBA. Mm-hmm. Nobody was really watching in the 70s. But him and Bird turned it out and made it worth watching and won 5 rings out of it, too.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I pick him.
Well, that's our list. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let us know in the comments. We'd like to thank Quentin for being here.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Well, we hope you guys enjoyed the show. We had a good time here. And now it's time for our little closing shots. Take it away.
All right, so for my closing shot, I'd like to do Player of the Week, and I think my Player of the Week is Anthony Davis. 52 points in the All-Star game. Now, I know it's just the All-Star. I know it's just the All-Star game, but that's got to feel good to have the most points in a game full of your peers who have been deemed the best among your profession. And he's got to feel pretty good now that he's got Boogie on his team as well.
Okay. I mean, I like the fact that that's extra incentive and motivation for New Orleans to get to where they got to go to. But can I do a co-player of the week, though?
Go for it.
Even though we only had one game this week, which was the All-Star game, I'm going to co-sign with my partner over here and say, yes, AD, Anthony Davis. However, I want to also add Kevin Durant there, too. He also got a triple-double in the All-Star game, one of 4 players to ever do it. And it was just an enjoyable thing to see him get out there, him and Westbrook, like I said earlier, coexist on that court. I mean, you're doing it for the fans, man. You're doing it for the fans.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for you. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'd like to thank Quentin Brandt for being here, and we'd like to thank Dylan Field, Mel Starson, Jay Rizek, and the NBA for making this possible. We really, really do appreciate it.
And also be sure to stay up to date with KPCK's programming by Facebook, Twitter, and all other forms of social media. And, and YouTube and Instagram as well. So thanks for watching. Until next time, keep balling.